Bom dia a todos e a todas os participantes deste evento, 11º Encontro sobre Música e Inclusão. É um prazer estarmos aqui com o professor Presgrave, que vai fazer a apresentação do professor Derek, Polichuk e Sungyeon, ok? Fábio Soren Presgrave, da Escola de Música, é professor titular e vice-diretor da Escola de Música da UFRN. Fábio Presgrave recebeu seus títulos de bacharel e mestre em performance pela renomada Juilliard School of Music em Nova York, onde estudou com Harvey Shapiro e Joel Krosnick. Apresentou-se como solista junto à orquestra como Qatar Philharmonic, Orquestra Filarmônica de Rosário, na Argentina, Orquestra Sinfônica Brasileira, dentre outras. Colaborou com a orquestra da UBRA na gravação do Noturno de Tchaikovsky para violoncelo e cordas, que consta na trilha sonora do filme Sal de Prata, do diretor Carlos Gervasi. Apresentações recentes incluem recitais como Daniel Guedes e Erika Leroux no Orquestra Spectrum de Dortmund e na série Camper Concert. Recitais de violoncelo solo na Espanha, nas cidades de Oviedo e Dijon, no Musikhuset, de Aarhus, na Dinamarca, e no Vila Música, em Mainz, na Alemanha. Recebeu o prêmio Carlos Gomes, em 2006, como membro do quarteto Camargo Guarnieri. Ministrou masterclasses e atuou como professor convidado em grandes centros de ensino musical, como Sibelius Academy, Finlândia, Royal Academy of Music, Dinamarca, Münster Music Hochschule, Interlochen Music Academy, European String Teacher Association, Folkwang Universität Kunst Essen, na Alemanha, e Festival Internacional de Campos do Jordão. Tem participado de bancas de concursos internacionais de violoncelo, como o David Popper Competition, na Hungria, e Suzhou, na China. É professor colaborador do PPG-MUS, da USP e da UFRJ. Fábio Presgrave, doutor pela Unicamp, e realizou, em colaboração com o professor Matias de Oliveira Pinto e Bolsa de CAPES, sua pesquisa pós-doutoral na Wels Felix Williams University, onde atuou como professor convidado em 2018, 2019 e 2022. É um prazer estar aqui com o professor Fábio Presgrave. Já de antemão, já agradecemos a sua participação, colaboração. Acredito que vai ser uma importante discussão, né, nessa live. Esqueci de me descrever, mas eu sou professora Catarina, da Escola de Música da UFRN, sou branca, descendente de coreanos, tenho cabelos curtos e pretos, 57 anos e 1,54 de altura. Estou usando uma blusa preta, né? Estou numa sala da Escola de Música da UFRN e é por trás de mim um telão de projeção de slide. Né? Então, thank you, Professor Derek, for your participation in our meeting. Professor Presgrave, fica à vontade para o senhor apresentar o professor Derek e como vai ser a transmissão dessa live.
Bom dia a todos. Muito obrigado, professora Catarina, pela apresentação. Me descrevendo aqui, eu sou um homem branco, de 47 anos de idade, com cabelo grisalho. Estou aqui numa sala da Escola de Música, com alguns quadros atrás de mim, na sala da vice-direção da Escola de Música. A gente tem a felicidade hoje de ter a palestra do professor Derek e de Sungyeon, e a gente vai primeiro assistir a palestra, para depois abrir para perguntas. Eu só vou ler rapidamente aqui, apresentando os professores. Professor Derek Polichuk, ele é professor de piano e diretor de pedagogia de piano na Faculdade de Música da Universidade Estadual de Michigan. Nasceu em San Diego e estudou com Christoph Bzusa, antes de frequentar a Universidade do Sul da Califórnia, a USC. Recebeu o seu título de doutorado em artes de piano, de performance de piano, com o professor Daniel Pollock. A Sungyeon é natural da Coreia do Sul. Ela se apresentou como pianista e musicista no seu país, na Alemanha, no Brasil e nos Estados Unidos. Realizou masterclass com Stephen Lin, Christopher Harding, Ian Hobson, e tem um mestrado pela Universidade de Indiana, nos Estados Unidos, onde estou com Norman Krieger. Atualmente está cursando o curso de doutorado em artes na Universidade de Michigan, onde recebeu bolsa de estudos integral na pós-graduação para ter a tutela do Dr. Polichuk. A gente vai agora apresentar a palestra que foi gravada dos dois professores. Depois a gente vai ter meia hora para perguntas, e eu vou fazer a tradução das perguntas e a mediação. So, Professor Polichuk and Sungyeon, you're very welcome to our virtual environment here of Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Norte. We are very happy to have you today. I quickly presented you to the participants and mentioned that now we're going to show the video presentation of your lecture. And after that, we'll have a half hour for discussion, and I'll help translating the questions that the participants might have.
Sounds great.
Agamenon, thank you very much. And Agamenon, I think we can probably start the video now.
Hello, my name is Sungyeon An. I'm originally from South Korea, and I'm currently pursuing a doctoral degree in piano performance at Michigan State University in the United States. I would like to introduce my mentor at MSU, Dr. Derek Polichuk.
Thanks, Sungyeon. I'm Derek Polichuk. I'm a member of the piano faculty at Michigan State, and we're very honored to be here at this conference about inclusion, a topic that is very important to us here at MSU. And we're going to talk to you about a groundbreaking piano festival for students on the autism spectrum that we have called Celebrating the Spectrum. I'm one of the founders of this festival, along with my colleague, Deborah Moriarty. And Sungyeon has played a pivotal role in this festival as a graduate student mentor and as our lead program assistant, sort of our organizing administrator for this festival. She's going to tell you a little bit more about Celebrating the Spectrum.
Celebrating the Spectrum Festival is a summer piano festival that is held at Michigan State University in July every year in the United States. It was founded by Professor Derek Polichuk and Professor Deborah Moriarty at MSU in 2016. This festival immerses 6 to 7 students on the autism spectrum in a daily schedule similar to a week of music major in a college setting. Each year, the students have been chosen by unrecorded audition and have been paired with a program assistant from the graduate department of Michigan State University. Here's a video, short documentary showing the first year of the festival. I hope this gives you a glimpse into the Students' Week.
I don't know what I was anticipating.
I was actually against it.
Yeah, I had a lot of apprehension, You know, a whole week, really a whole week?
I am not coming all the way to Michigan.
When we first got here, all of a sudden, I just knew it was okay. It was just the right thing.
I thought immediately of traditional teaching. Your traditional piano teaching cannot be taught to any of the kids that are here.
Very good, very good. The goal that I have for them and for their parents is that doors of possibility are opened. I was anticipating something extraordinary because having worked with students with ASD, I know that they are capable of extraordinary things when they're put into exciting circumstances.
I was quite nervous. I've never been to a piano camp.
I was worried about logistical things. I was worried about how are we going to recruit students. I was worried about do we have enough meal tickets for lunch, that sort of stuff. But I wasn't worried about these students' ability. I have seen their ability before in my work, and so I was excited about that part.
The professors teach us piano in ways that I've never been taught before.
You want it to sound lonely. You make me a lonely sound.
It's been really great.
Beautiful. Right hand.
The whole celebrating the spectrum idea is just showing that there's so many wonderful things that can happen with kids on the spectrum. They play the piano with tremendous emotion, and they're very excited about what they're doing. And that's a very exciting thing for us to work with, and it's also a very exciting thing, I think, to show other people.
Basic day is 8 a.m. breakfast. Students then get on the bus right before 9 o'clock for a master class on their solo repertoire.
And then they have a Pilates class from 11 to 11:45.
Go over again at noon. At 1 o'clock, we have a college-style lecture. From 2 to 4, the students are paired up with their mentors and are working on four-hand piano repertoire.
And then 2 hours of practice from 4 to 6.
And then at 6 o'clock, we have dinner at Brody again. From 7 to about 8 o'clock, we have a fun campus activity.
I like the master classes, and then I also like coming to the dairy store.
Gives them a sense of what the university is like and what it's like to be in this kind of an environment.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
And it's going to, I think, make a great recital.
I do hope that I can do my best and not break down the stage.
We have a big range of levels of playing, which is terrific.
I am really happy with everybody's progress, but I think most importantly, I'm happy that people are having a good time and are engaged and feeling the dynamic of the festival.
And the impact on the students is very positive.
Sometimes when a person gets a diagnosis, they kind of get put in a lane. The spectrum of different interests and abilities of a person with autism is every bit as wide as a person without autism. And oftentimes they're locked out of things like performing arts, for example. And it's such a rich part of life. This really does give us the opportunity to really recognize, appreciate, and even celebrate how much a person.
Excellent job. You're welcome.
There's this really famous music festival in the summers in Aspen, Colorado, and this is sort of the center of the classical music universe in many ways in the summers. And I want this to become the Aspen for Asperger's. I want this to be something that all students with autism spectrum disorders know about and want to come to.
I think it's just such a wonderful thing. It makes us shine the way we should shine.
I want them to come here because it's inspiring. I want them to come here because it's fun. I want to expand this to many other instruments and to make this something that people with autism strive for and want to be at and want to be transformed at. It's going to need a lot more pianos.
These are the pictures from last year performing 2 concerts during the festival week. Students perform a house concert for a selected group of friends and family, and a public concert attended by a large group of audience in Cook Recital Hall at MSU. For both concerts, students perform piano solo music, piano duo music with their mentors, and a jazz improvisation all together.
Sungyeon and I are going to tell you a little bit about the festival, a little bit more in depth about the festival, and we're going to kind of do this in an interview format so that there's good kind of easy communication, conversational style communication that hopefully will give you more behind the scenes view of what we're doing. So Sungyeon.
Could you tell us why you decided to start this festival and tell us about the history of
Sure.
the festival.
Well, I started teaching students with autism kind of by accident, actually. I teach a piano pedagogy seminar here at MSU. And at the time, that pedagogy seminar was teaching a group class of beginning 7- and 8-year-old students at the community music school in East Lansing. And in that class, there was a young man by the name of Kealii. And Kealii, it was clear to me that Kealii was a little bit different. I didn't quite know how he was different, but it was clear that he was a little bit different. It's also clear to me that he was extremely musically gifted, that his ear was quite a bit better than other students, that he had a very natural rhythmic sense that was quite advanced for a child his age. And so at the end of the semester, Kealii's mother came to me and said, I just wanted to let you know that Kealii has high functioning autism and that this piano class has meant a lot to him and that he really loves it. And we were wondering if you could work with Kealii privately. And so I started teaching Kealii. I think this was the maybe the fall of 2008. And I got really excited about this because I thought, wow, this is a new kind of student, a type of student I've never worked with before. And so I just started to read a lot of the literature about how to teach students effectively with autism spectrum disorders. This kind of increasingly became an interest of mine. And I also, to be perfectly honest, I was a little bit frustrated by current models of teaching students with autism spectrum disorders. I think the assumption was that these students were a little bit behind neurotypical students, were not particularly capable of connecting musically with their emotional side. And I just didn't find that to be the case with my work with Kealii. I found that Kealii was able to do all of the things that my neurotypical students were able to do when it came to artistry and emotion and really playing from his heart. So I began to kind of explore what kind of things were out there on our campus in terms of resources. MSU is a really huge university, one of the biggest universities in the world, I think. And we have many different departments who are teaching many different things. And I discovered that there was an office on our campus, kind of an institute on our campus that was an institute for faculty of different fields to work with each other in interdisciplinary ways. And there was a man in charge of that office named Ian Gray. And Ian was a former vice president of research here at MSU. And Ian had a real passion for teaching students with autism and for research about teaching students with autism. And so Ian and this office at MSU became a very early partner for kind of developing the infrastructure of what we do in terms of funding and partnering with housing on campus for finding dorm rooms for these students and for all of that kind of connected kind of stuff that you get at a big university. And so in 2016, we held our first festival. I think we had 5 students that first year. And it was very difficult actually to recruit these students. I had been a member of a Facebook group for teaching piano to students with autism. And I thought, you know, I'll put up an advertisement on that Facebook group and everybody will be like, wow, I can't wait to send my student to this cool festival at MSU. And as it turned out, many people who were teaching students with autism were quite closed to that possibility. They didn't think that their students were advanced enough or focused enough or capable enough of going to a camp like this. So the recruiting in the first year was quite difficult. I really had to contact people all over the country about finding students to come to the festival. Once we had the first festival, it was wildly successful. People had a really great time and the word spread quite fast. And so now we have, we had our last festival this summer of 2024, and we have students who want to come to this on a waiting list at this point. So we're really excited about where the festival has gone. I think one other thing I would add about this festival is that there are, students with autism. There are students with autism who have very different abilities at the piano, and there are some students who are actually what is called artistic savants, and so they're people who are quite disabled in the rest of their life, but at the piano they're geniuses. They can play basically anything, and we've had a couple of those individuals at our festival, and that's a really interesting glimpse into the power of autism when it comes to something like playing the piano or participating in the arts in some other kind of way. So I hope that gives a little glimpse into the history.
Yeah. You briefly mentioned, but other than recruiting students, what are the challenges initiating this special event, and how did you overcome the challenge?
It's a great question. As you saw in that video, I talked about how the challenges were less about the teaching itself, but more about just the organization. And obviously, funding is a big challenge. Our model that we hope to continue is that the students who come here on a full scholarship for the week, so they don't incur any kind of cost. And that also we want to pay for their travel here for themselves and either one parent or caregiver. We want to make sure that these students feel comfortable, that this is not a financial burden on their family, that kind of stuff. So funding is always something that is difficult. And as you all know, funding a project in the arts is very, very difficult. I think the other challenge at the beginning, where there were a lot of people who thought that our model was not tenable, that people thought that a whole long day for these students would be too much for them, would be kind of overwhelming. They also had there were people who had concerns about the students staying in dorms on campus safely and comfortably. And I have to say, both of those things in the first year, the students who come to this festival proved all of those people wrong. They really rose to the occasion. They were enthusiastic and energetic throughout the day. They love staying in the dorm. We have a fabulous cafeteria that they eat at. It's one of the highlights of their day is eating at Brody Cafeteria. It's one of the highlights of my day is eating at Brody Cafeteria during the festival. But it's so those were kind of some of the challenges at the beginning. We continue to face challenges of funding and finding sort of a more sustainable route in that way. Yeah.
Great.
So as we've mentioned before, one of the distinctives of Celebrating the Spectrum is that we have neurotypical graduate students in piano performance and piano pedagogy work with the students as mentors during the week. And Sungyeon has served as a really excellent mentor for 2 years. In her first year, she was a mentor to one of the students. And in the second year, she was our head mentor, sort of our lead administrator for this festival. So Sungyeon, can you tell me a little bit about your experience of working with the students at this festival?
Yeah, after participating in this festival as a mentor in 2023, this festival quickly became one of my favorite times of the year. Working with these students were inspiring and rewarding for me. And I actually learned a lot from the students, from their attitude towards music and life.
That's great. That's great. Did you feel that you learned other things from the students? Was there anything about the way that the students approached music or the way that the students approached imagination or creativity in the way that they played the piano that affected you as a teacher or a performer?
Oftentimes I find myself not being able to focus on my performance or practice, caring about other things. But these students, they were so focused on the music they play, the classes they take. So that's the thing that I learned from them.
That's a really great point. I think I learned the same thing sometimes. The way that an autistic mind is really able to focus is, I think you're saying it perfectly, like very different than the way that we sort of operate in society currently, at least in kind of neurotypical world. So that's an interesting point. What kind of adaptations did you have to make, either like in teaching or just working with these students to best serve these students?
So in 2024, I was a lead program assistant. So I was in charge of coordinating logistics and communication with various stakeholders. And since every student needed a different level of accommodations, I try to tailor support for each of them individually. So before the festival began, I contacted their parents and asked for students' information, including their dietary needs, medicines they take, their habits, because often students with autism spectrum, the routine is really important for them. So every details like that we need to know to make the festival comfortable and enjoyable for them. And luckily we had resources and support from Michigan State University, so it was not terribly difficult.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I appreciate the fact that when Sungyeon was our lead mentor, she's kind of understating how detailed she was about all of the things that she gathered about the students. I think that's an indispensable part of making a festival like this run smoothly. When you were a teacher, when you were a mentor teacher for these students, was there anything that you learned from that work?
So we have master class every day with Dr. Polichuk and Professor Moriarty. So we watch all the students play and having taught from the professors. And I learned that how important it is to teach in a way that is the most efficient and effective for individual students. And it is important to be able to students' needs individually.
I think that's a really good point. And working at this festival every summer, it kind of serves as a reminder to me that every student we work with is an individual, whether they are neurotypical or on the autism spectrum or have some other kind of special need. We really need to tailor our teaching very specifically to our students. So it's a good reminder of that. It's great.
Yeah. And I think it's not only for students on the autism spectrum or any special needs, but also any students learning piano needs
very good,
like individual accommodation.
Very good. Yeah. Totally agree.
So from my experience, I found this festival is a little bit unique and special. It's different from any other music festival that I attended before. So from your perspective, what do you think is unique about this festival?
Well, there are a couple of things that I think are unique and distinctive about what we try to do, and specific choices that we make about how to design things that I find are quite unique. I think one of the things that we always try to do is to foster collaboration between people. And there's a couple reasons for that. One of the reasons is that studying the piano is very lonely. When you study the piano, you go to your piano lesson and then you go practice for many hours all by yourself in a room. And it's kind of a lonely pursuit. And also, another thing that we think about is the fact that sometimes students with autism struggle with kind of social skills, the soft skills of just what's a good way to make conversation with somebody and that sort of stuff. And so we wanted to create situations where people are able to work on those skills collaboratively. And so having students work specifically with graduate student mentors is, I think, the keystone of that. Without that interaction that the graduate student mentors have with the students. It would just be lessons with a faculty member, which is good, but I think doesn't have nearly as much power as working with somebody who's closer to your age and who is just kind of a student like you, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a unique thing that I think that we try to do. I think another thing that is a collaborative kind of concept is the fact that we have the students work on chamber music. So they're working on these forehand pieces with their mentor. And that is a whole host of other communication things that students have to do in order to play successfully. Learning how to cue the other pianist, learning how to share the pedal, you know, learning how to share the keyboard, learning how to breathe together. All of these things are, I think, really quite unique. And then, you know, we also have jazz improvisation. Now, I'm not a jazz pianist, so we have our fabulous jazz faculty. We have Randy Napoleon, who teaches jazz guitar here, and he comes in and he teaches the students about how to improvise in different kinds of styles, how to improvise in the style of the blues. And that's a really powerful thing because, first of all, pianists, classical pianists, are not taught improvisation. And so oftentimes we feel extremely scared about improvising when we're not playing something off of a score. And as we've talked about a little bit, students with autism can oftentimes exhibit a little bit of rigidity when it comes to staying with a routine and staying with a schedule. And sometimes having those students improvise in a new style is a way for them to think, okay, I can actually kind of get out there and spread my wings and try something that's quite different. So I think those are some of the distinctive things that we have tried to do up to this point. And we hope that that model is serving the students really well. And as we change the festival and adapt to what happens in the future, we hope to continue to add activities like that that are collaborative and unique to what we do here.
That's great. So we've been having this festival since 2016.
Right.
And I'm wondering, what were the outcomes of this festival?
Well, I think first and foremost, the main outcome of the festival is that the students who come here on the autism spectrum, we find that they are improving a lot year over year. So we do have some students who are returning students, and we find that they leave campus very inspired, and during the school year are pursuing their piano studies with added vigor. And so that's, you know, it's an inspiring thing for them to want to get ready for in a subsequent year. So that's really the most important outcome. I think another outcome that's important is giving the graduate student mentors a really interesting teaching experience, you know, a teaching experience that is harder to get working with students with special needs. And so we find that's a good outcome. I've also, as I've shared about this festival at venues like this and other conferences and through papers that I've written, I'm trying to share what we do as kind of a new model for working with students with autism, sort of breaking the boundaries of what we thought was possible before with these students, showing how artistic teaching that taps into imagery and imagination and creativity is actually something that reaches students with autism very effectively. So we're continuing down that road of trying to produce these outcomes with folks to maybe change the paradigm a little bit of how piano teachers are working with students with autism.
Yeah. I'm hoping that more people can have experiences like this learning music. So as a founder of this project, how do you think this type of experience can be replicated in another places? Yeah,
well, first of all, you know, we're in talks with some other partners in other countries about bringing Celebrating the Spectrum to their country. And so we may have the opportunity soon to sort of bring some of our faculty and our students to other countries and to work with students from those countries with autism spectrum disorders. That's something that is very exciting for us to think about. But also, I think the format of this festival is something that could be done in other places. If there's very accomplished piano teacher and some of their neurotypical students, they could very easily work on forehand piano repertoire in kind of a festival style, summer camp style setting, and give a performance at the end of the week. This is the kind of thing that is quite easy to replicate in other places, and I hope that individuals will do it. I hope that there are organizations out there that might take that step. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation and have learned a little bit about ways to work with students on the autism spectrum at the piano. If you would like more information about this program, you can find that at this QR code, which is a link to our website at Michigan State University, and also includes contact information for those individuals at MSU who are in charge of this program. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Polichuk and Sungyeon, for this wonderful presentation. Very inspiring to see what you're doing at the festival and how you're influencing so many lives. I have a couple questions that some of the participants brought to me. One of them, is there the intention to expand the project to beginners or students at school age?
Yeah, that's a great question. At this point, we don't have that plan, simply because the model that we're trying to use is we're trying to recruit advanced pianists, advanced pianists on the autism spectrum, people who are playing advanced repertoire. And I think our main reason for that is just simply because when we have them working on forehand pieces with, pianists like Sungyeon, who are artist level pianists at MSU, it's really important that they, are able to play that repertoire. This being said, I could see in the future using the model of teaching students in an artistic way, expanding to some beginning students. We have a community music school at MSU East Lansing, which I think would be a nice venue for an event like this.
Bom, traduzindo aqui rapidamente a pergunta e o que o professor falou, a pergunta era se tinha uma intenção do festival de expandir também para alunos iniciantes, para crianças em idade escolar, mas que a princípio não, que o perfil do festival ele é para os alunos já avançados, com essa característica específica, que já tocam. Então, no momento seria isso, mas que, obviamente, que com a expansão artística isso vai alcançar outros tipos de públicos também. Teve uma outra pergunta que foi sobre, que eu vou passar para o professor agora, que foi sobre o estilo, se tem algum estilo de repertório, alguma época que os alunos se envolveram mais ou de alguma forma diferente. So another question is, did you feel during the festivals that the students were more interested in some style of repertoire, Baroque, Romantic, Contemporary, or did it vary?
Well, it's varied over the years, what kind of repertoire the students are into. So as an example, we let the students choose their solo piece that they bring to the festival. And most of the time, those solo pieces are pretty standard piano repertoire, a lot of 19th century music, which is kind of the heart of our repertoire as pianists. But we've had sometimes when we've had very interested, enthusiastic pianists who are not formally classically trained. So this past year, actually 2 years ago, we had a young man by the name of Jude Kofi, he was 11 when he first came to the festival. He's from Colorado. And Jude is a spectacular kind of jazz pianist. He plays a lot of gospel music in church, and learns mostly by ear. So we had to kind of steer him down a path of choosing some classical repertoire that we'd be able to work on with him in terms of sound and technique at the instrument. But, you know, we're always looking to engage the interest of the students, because I think that's the best way for them to remain really enthusiastic about what they're doing. I think that's a good principle of piano teaching in general, is to make sure that students are working on repertoire that they really love.
Bom, então o professor respondeu que o repertório varia muito de ano para ano, de acordo com o que os estudantes trazem, e que às vezes, inclusive, como o festival é mais focado em música de concerto, já aconteceu de ter um participante que, por exemplo, tocava muito jazz e música gospel, mas que eles acabaram trabalhando coisas clássicas também, para trazer para o espírito do festival e poder trabalhar alguns aspectos de sonoridade, de interpretação. Então, que isso não teve uma constante de preferência do que os alunos, no geral, trabalham. Não sei se temos mais colocações aqui, se puderem pedir para os coordenadores colocarem aqui no chat para mim. Just checking if we have more interaction with our audience. Okay, I guess we don't have any further questions, but last question, just out of curiosity, because you mentioned in the video the challenges with funding, and I was happy to hear that at the dorms they actually were a very good experience for the students to get a little bit of the university feeling at Michigan. And how do you see your future endeavors with fundraising, and do you have other institutions that are, you know, getting closer to you after you've done it for a while? Yes, this was my question for you.
Yeah. Well, you know, in terms of fundraising, what has been really quite positive for us is private donations from individual donors. I think that there are, you know, the autism community amongst parents is a very strong community. It's a group of very dedicated parents who really spend a lot of time and money on their children's pursuits to make sure that their children are living a very fulfilling life. So there are a number of people who are donors to the College of Music who have had autistic children over the years and are very interested in supporting an initiative like this. So in terms of private fundraising, we've had a lot of promising things happening. There's an organization, we hinted at it a little bit in the presentation, but there's an organization in China that deals with, I forget the full title of this organization, but they've built a large school of the arts for people with developmental delays. And they're interested in partnering with us in terms of bringing Spectrum there to do this festival with students from China. So we're hoping to foster more partnerships like that, because I think it's interesting to put something like this in a different cultural context. It's also interesting to go to countries like China, where maybe there are less opportunities in the arts for people with developmental delays as there are in a place like the United States. And so just kind of getting out and doing that sort of, those sort of things is very interesting for us.
And just out of curiosity, because I always feel in the arts in the United States, as you mentioned, there are some private donors, which is quite rare in the Southern Hemisphere, and even in Europe, I would say. By any chance, when you donate as an individual, do you get like tax exemption or?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, the tax code in the United States is very much favors charitable donations. So a lot of times people are looking to make these kinds of donations. Actually, this time of year is when a lot of these kinds of donations come in as the calendar year is wrapping up for tax purposes.
I see. Então, traduzindo, o que eu perguntei para ele foi os desafios que a gente tem de montagem de um evento como esse, são os desafios de onde que se consegue os recursos, né? Que ele tinha falado um pouco na palestra, mas ele enfatizou assim as doações individuais de pessoas, inclusive, que são já doadores da universidade e que participaram do festival de uma forma intensa, ajudando. E também perguntei de instituições, ele falou da instituição na China, que é uma parceria provável para o futuro, e fiz uma última pergunta, porque eu sempre fico impressionado de como nos Estados Unidos existem essas doações pessoais, que no hemisfério sul aqui não é muito comum, nem na Europa, mas é porque isso tem a ver com a legislação americana, e que você consegue abatimento de imposto. Se a gente for mal comparar com o que a gente tem no Brasil, seria uma lei de incentivo à cultura sem você ter que entrar na lei de incentivo à cultura. É uma coisa meio que automática. Você doa e tem a sua redução de imposto. We have another question here from Catarina. At an institutional level, with this project, do you think there was a change in the inclusive culture of the music school? Were people more aware, or did you notice any changes?
What a great question. Sungyeon, I don't know if this is something you might be able to talk to as a student who's been here for a couple of years now.
Yeah. I don't know how it changed our university, but personally, it really changed my perception on students on the autism spectrum and just teaching in general as well. Because before participating in the Celebrating the Spectrum, I've never met any students on the autism spectrum, and I was surprised at how creative and dedicated they can be in this environment. And I think all the mentors who participated in that kind of feel the same about it. So we always, the students in the MSU recommend each other to participate in the festival every summer.
If I could add one little thing to that, I think that's a great point that Sungyeon's talking about, how working at this festival changes the perceptions of the teachers as well as the students, obviously. And I think that's a powerful part of working with people with neurodiversity. I think the other sort of impact that I've seen is amongst the audiences. So the audience that comes to this concert, it happens in the middle of the summer when there's very few performances on campus, but it's clear that people are very excited to come hear a great musical performance, but then are simultaneously very inspired by sort of the context of the performance. So I think that in some small ways it's changing sort of the attitudes about inclusion amongst audiences, amongst students, amongst teachers who are working in this festival. And all of those impacts have been positive.
Então, a pergunta da Catarina era que, no âmbito institucional, como que se o projeto tem tido impactos. E a Sungyeon, ela disse que, por um lado, pessoal, para ela foi uma experiência de muita mudança, e que ela acha que para todos que participaram teve um momento de mudança de como se vê a inclusão e qual o poder dela dentro da instituição. E o professor comentou que também teve um impacto não só nos colegas e estudantes que participaram do projeto, mas também no público que vai à universidade. E que começa a ver de forma diferente a inclusão e como pode ser interessante o termo que ele usou em inglês, eu não sei se tem em português, mas neurodiversidade, e como que isso afeta a sensação de vínculo das pessoas do público com a universidade também. There is a comment here from one of the participants, Giseline, and she mentioned that she found very interesting that you worked with repertoire beyond the repertoire that the student actually brings. So you suggest things that are that will be added to their practice. I think that we don't have any more questions, and we thank you very much, Dr. Polichuk and Sungyeon, for this wonderful presentation. We hope that we'll further our collaboration between Michigan and Natal, and it's one of the beautiful things of international projects is that we see that we're doing so many things in common, and that we can be so much stronger when we get to know things that are being done in other parts of the globe. I recently had the experience of getting to know the work of a university in Thailand, and that they're doing very, similar work with girls from 10 to 15 with string instruments that we are doing here in Natal. It's like we are doing the same thing in another multiverse, in another part of the world. But the intentions are similar, and we learned so much from your experience, and hopefully we will be able to further this communication and possibilities. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation to you too, and hopefully, yes, Sungyeon was in Natal, did a wonderful piano recital, and Catherine is mentioning with piano and flute, and hopefully we'll have much more soon. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. And for the participants, para os participantes também, boa continuação de eventos. Temos uma mesa em breve. Estava aqui agradecendo ao professor Derek e a Sungyeon por esse momento muito construtivo hoje de manhã.
Thank you very much for having us.
Obrigada.
Obrigado.